Okay, it's almost ready. Okay, we're up. Awesome. All right, so I am now going to unpause the recording. So we are recording as well. Okay, almost ready.
Okay, great. Can we get started then, Nikki?
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Okay. It's my clock is saying 3:01, so we'll go ahead and get started. And if Jim Pytel joins us a little later, that'll be okay because we have a quorum right now. So I'd like to start with a roll call, get rid of all of the standard stuff. And as please verbalize the aye and raise your hand when I call your name. But Member Cervantes.
Aye.
Member Kinney.
Here.
And I am here, Terry Andrews. Missing are Amy Lyford and Jim Vitale. So thank you everybody for being here today. The next item on our agenda would be, is there any reordering of the agenda items? It's pretty short, so I doubt that, but I have to ask the question. And if not, hearing none, I'd like to go ahead and look for a motion to adopt our agenda.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to adopt the agenda and take a roll call. Member Cervantes,
Aye.
Member Kinney,
Aye.
and there's an aye for me, Member Andrews, so that will pass. Is there any, Vicki, do you know if we have any public comment on non-agenda items?
I just checked and we haven't had anything come in.
Okay, good. We'll move on quickly to the consent calendar, which is very sparse, but it has the minutes from the last meeting that we had, which was on August the 11th. So could I get a motion to approve the consent calendar?
Go ahead, Rushmore.
Either one. You know, we'll trade. We'll take turns. I'll move.
I'll second. You're more official.
Oh, please.
I wonder if I can jump in here and move a couple myself, so I'm not sure that's appropriate. Okay, so I'll take a quick roll call. Member Cervantes,
Aye.
Member Kenny,
Aye.
that's an aye for me, Member Andrews. So thank you so much for all of that. Everybody appreciate your cooperation on that. And
Terry,
yes,
I have a question. I don't know where to ask it. And it's about the AB 361 new law that started on October 1st about Brown Act. And is that, I just want to ensure that we're supposed to be teleconferencing.
Yeah, I can answer that. So we had to pass a resolution at the regular board meeting on September 27th that we will continue to carry out the meetings, and we have to update the resolution every 30 days. And that resolution covers all library district committees as well. So we are good to go because we passed that at our last board meeting.
Excellent. Thank you.
yeah, I thought actually that we would have to pass our own resolution, but Diego assured me that's already taken care of. So that'll be automatic and we'll be in good shape on that one. So Nikki, I'm gonna sort of turn this over to you. We don't have a special presentation. We don't have any unfinished business. We're basically going to take a look at the documents that we got, and congratulations everybody on our small committee for your first 160-page agenda. Thanks for slogging through that. We really do appreciate that. So Nikki, I'll let you kind of give an overview about what we're here for today.
Sure, and I will very shortly pass it over to Nora, who's going to do an overview for us of all of the documents. But so as you are probably all aware, we originally had aimed to do the bond issuance in October, in which case, like, you would have seen these preliminary documents either late August, early September. The board would have got them at their regular meeting because they'll have to approve these before we can actually go into the bond issuance process. That timeline got pushed back because we wanted to get basically the cost estimates out of the Tier 3 seismic study, as well as the hazardous material study, to build that into the total amount that we're going to bond out. So that kind of put everything on hold to some extent, but I've been working with Nora on these for probably the last, 4 months, 3 to 4 months, Nora. And she was full speed ahead to get them to the CFD committee by early September, but we felt like it was a good idea, although the board probably won't be voting on these until December, to get these in front of the CFD committee as early as possible. Today is simply for discussion, review, feedback, and thoughts. We could potentially bring them back with any changes or updates. And Nora did want me to say these are like the initial draft. There's going to be more edits and things going into them moving forward. Either way, we'll either bring them back to the CFD committee to review and recommend for approval to the full board in November, but definitely in December. We'll see how today goes and decide whether or not a November meeting makes sense. Because again, we don't want to schedule meetings if there's really nothing to review or do. So that's kind of where we're at. I also thought it was really important because, you know, we want this process to be as open and transparent as possible so that the public can review these documents and weigh in as well by, you know, emailing me, calling me, connecting with the CFD committee members. So that's why, like, we thought we'd get it out today, which is October. We won't be finalizing these for probably another 2 months, but it does give people the opportunity, especially the taxpayers who are going to be the ones funding this, to take a look at these documents as well. So with that, I'll pass it over to Nora, who created the staff reports and all 150 pages for your review with help from the other members of the bond team, which we have Doug Anderson, our municipal advisor, and Mike Kavanagh, our bond underwriter, with us today as well. So Nora, our bond counsel, I pass the baton to you.
Sure. So as Nikki said, and I won't take credit for all of them because the Underwriters Council did prepare the bond purchase agreement. So the document at the very end of the package was not prepared by us. But as Nikki said, these are initial drafts. You know, we were kind of going full speed ahead with the schedule that was set out at the beginning. So while we have been working on these documents haven't really been worked on in the last little bit, just because when we got stalled, you know, there's a lot of work that goes into getting this ready to go and get posted and put out as an offering document. I'm specifically, I guess, talking to the preliminary official statement. And we kind of, I guess, you know, stopped working on that until we got a better sense of the timing. So these are initial drafts. So just bear in mind, I'll go through kind of what the resolution of issuance is approving and then each of the documents. And we happily accept, you know, any comments, whether it's a typo or as I was going through them just to prepare an overview, I found a couple myself. So it's hard when, you know, we'll all as a working group start reviewing these a lot more diligently as we get closer to putting out the offering document and getting the deal done and getting the documents in front of the board. But it's really hard when you're working on the document to see those little things. So we accept all comments, small and large. So to go through the resolution it's called a resolution of issuance. So I'll go through what the resolution of issuance does. So by adoption of the resolution of issuance, the board they'll authorize the issuance of the bonds and pursuant to conditions under which the bonds will be issued. So in the resolution, and I'll just go to the specific section, but it's section 4, and it has authorization and conditions. So currently I have all of the numbers in brackets since we have not determined what the recommended max par amount is. The authorized amount under the formation proceedings is 24 million. So I do have that in brackets along with the true interest cost on the bonds not exceeding 3.6% and the underwriter's discount not being in excess of 0.408% of the total amount of the bonds. But right now, those are just kind of placeholders that will change based on the seismic study and the other information that's received. The resolution, section 2 of the resolution makes determinations required by the Mello-Roos Act. So the first being that the value of property in the district is at least 3 times the principal amount of land secured bonded debt outstanding in the district. I mean, in this case, it is a fully built out district, so that is not an issue. I think to go back to the specific section of the POS, but I think the assessed value of property in the district is like $7 billion or something like that. So we don't have to worry about that one, but we do still have to make that finding that's required under the act. And then making the finding that the bonds comply with the local goals and policies for community facilities districts. And that was done during the formation, those goals and policies. And then the resolution also contains an Exhibit A, and if to the extent there are any questions on this, Doug or Mike can probably address this, but there's a government code section 5852.1 that was done maybe back in 2017 that requires these good faith estimates to be prepared by either a private lender, underwriter, or municipal advisor, and presented in a meeting open to the public. So what we typically do, just for transparency purposes and also record keeping, is include those good faith estimates as an exhibit to the resolution so that they're kept properly, and you can always go back and say this was complied with. So Exhibit A contains the true interest cost of the bonds, and these are all estimates, good faith estimates based on conditions, market conditions at the time right now. So to the extent that these change before this resolution is considered by the board, Doug and Mike will work to update these numbers. So I think, and Doug can chime in, but I believe these were based on market conditions on October 1st, and also based on a par amount of that 24 million, or not a par amount. Yeah, a par amount of that 24 million. It has the true interest cost on the bonds, the finance charge of the bonds, the total proceeds expected to be received by the district, and then the total payments expected to be made by the district for the bonds. And the way these are calculated is set forth in that government code section. And the Exhibit A does a pretty good job, I think, of really going through that piece. So if there's any questions, that would be more to Doug or Mike on that. And then the resolution approves the bond purchase agreement, so that this document authorizes the sale of the bonds to Hilltop Securities and establishes the terms and conditions under which the district will sell the bonds to Hilltop as the underwriter, and the underwriter will purchase the bonds from the district. And that is that last document in the document package. I think it starts on, let's see. That starts on page 149. The resolution of issuance also approves the fiscal agent agreement. So it appoints US Bank National Association as fiscal agent for the bonds. This is kind of the document that really sets up the funds and accounts and kind of the administration of the debt, I would say. It sets forth the terms of the bonds, creates funds and accounts into which the proceeds of the bonds will be deposited, and provides for the payment of principal and interest on the bonds. It contains covenants of the district, and the form of the bond is attached as Exhibit A to that fiscal agent agreement. And the fiscal agent agreement is that first document in your package. So starts on page 15 and goes to page 68. So if you'll notice, there's also two other exhibits. One is a cost of issuance fund exhibit, and one is a project cost exhibit. So those funds, the cost of issuance money will be requisitioned, and that will pay cost of issuance on the bonds. And then the project fund, that is where the bond proceeds for the project will be deposited. And then you'll requisition the fiscal agent for that money, and that will keep just a really good record for IRS purposes of how the bond proceeds are spent. And the next document in your package is the preliminary official statement that starts on page 69 and goes all the way to the BPA. So all the way to page 148. So this is the document that Hilltop will use to market the bonds to prospective purchasers, and those purchasers will rely on this document in making a decision whether or not to buy the bonds. You know, as this is kind of like probably I don't want to say the most important document, but this is a document that really, the more eyes on it, the better. It describes the terms of the bonds, the security and source of repayment for the bonds. It contains information regarding the CFD, the library district, and under securities law, the official statement must not contain any untrue statement of a material fact or omit to state a material fact necessary to make the statements made under the circumstances which they were made not misleading. So this is a really important document to focus on and make sure that it has all the information in there that should be in there, and it doesn't say anything wrong, basically. And then we prepare, as your disclosure counsel, we prepare the official statement, but at the end of the day, the official statement is the district's document. So if any committee member is aware of any material fact that should be included in this official statement that's not currently included, please let us know so we can add it. It also, the official statement, a big, important part of it is these special risk factors, which start on page 30 of the document and go to page 39 of the document. So that would just be letting prospective investors know what special risk factors there are in basically purchasing these bonds, which are secured by special taxes levied on property within the district. So there is, I think the meat of the disclosure on the risk factors is really a section on the risk of property values generally, and goes through like climate change, environmental, fire, those sorts of issues, which I think we still have some placeholders in to keep gathering information to beef up that section. The resolution also authorizes the POS to be brought into the form of a final official statement after pricing. So you'll notice that right now there's a lot of blanks in there, and a lot of those blanks will be filled in before pricing, but a lot of them will stay blank until the bonds are actually priced, and then all the interest rates will be filled in, the prices, et cetera. So we'll bring that preliminary official statement into the form of a final official statement. And then Exhibit E, Appendix E to the preliminary official statement is the form of continuing disclosure agreement. This is also approved by the resolution of issuance. This is required. The underwriter has to be able to sell the bonds, has to ensure that the district will provide ongoing disclosure to investors. So this is the document between the district and NBS as a dissemination agent to provide ongoing disclosure to the municipal bond market in the form of an annual report, and then also notification of the occurrence of 16 listed events required by Rule 15 C212, and that's promulgated under the Securities Exchange Act of 1934. In terms of the annual report, the CFD does not prepare annual financial statements, but there is a list of information that would be provided annually, such as amount of bonds outstanding, fund balances, reserve requirement, an update to the tables in the official statement using the then current year's special tax levy or assessed value. And then since special taxes haven't been levied in the district yet, there will also be a table in the report showing total special taxes levied, total special taxes collected, and then special taxes unpaid as of December 31st of that year, prior to which the report is being provided, as well as the status of any foreclosure actions on the unpaid special taxes, and then other information required to be reported pursuant to the Mello-Roos Act, which also has this annual reporting information requirement. And then the 16 listed events, I don't want to bore you with going through them all in detail, but they're listed in in section 5. So there's some that just need to be reported no matter what, and others that have a materiality requirement. And we kind of talked about this when we went through the tax and disclosure policies. The resolution of issuance also authorizes the district to apply for and accept bond insurance and a debt service reserve insurance. And, you know, Mike and Doug can probably speak more to this. This is just making sure that there's the flexibility to do that if we were to need to. I think that based on what the anticipated current rating on the bonds would be, there probably will not be a need for bond insurance or debt service reserve fund insurance. But if there is, this allows the district to apply for and accept municipal bond insurance. And I guess that's my spiel and high level overview, and happy to take any specific questions on the documents or the process, or I know Mike and Doug are also here, and I'm sure they're more than happy to answer any questions on the process as well that's more of a bond underwriter or municipal advisor type questions.
Well, are there any, I'll go first if it's all kind of overwhelming, you know, it's a big document and there's a lot of legalese and there's stuff coming at us, you know, it's going to take a while to sort of absorb this. And I think I'm kind of starting small in terms of my questions, and this will be for you or anybody else that cares to jump in. There were a couple of places in the resolution and then elsewhere where it talked about the authorized people from the library that would be handling things and so on. And one of my interests in this whole thing is how many resources are going to be required from the library to get this done and make sure it's monitored and compliant and everything else. And so I guess that would be, when I saw the list of things that our vendors were going to do for us, it sort of made me think that most of this stuff is going to be handled by the people that we've got hired to do this, that we won't take a lot of people from the library to be doing the accounting and all the other stuff to get this stuff done, right? I guess that would be my first generic question. And anybody that wants to jump in on that, I'd appreciate hearing about it.
I'm sure I'm happy to take that, or it looks like Doug took himself off mute. I think Nikki can probably speak to that as well, but we are helping with the bond issue, all of the consulting team. I know Nikki obviously has been extensively involved in the process, but in terms of more of an ongoing role, so the library district board is the legislative body of the CFD. So they will be involved in getting the documents executed and signing the documents once we get through that, kind of bond pricing and then closing. But in terms of ongoing administration, I believe NBS, the special tax consultant, will be doing most of the ongoing administration work for the district, and also that continuing disclosure as dissemination agent. So Doug or Nikki can speak more to that, but I don't believe the board will be extensively involved in the day-to-day administration of the bonds or the district.
Yeah, Nora, I think that's right. And Terry, MBS will do the annual report that's required, but they're also going to keep track of these listed events. If something happens during the year, they will also provide any updates that need to be published on the disclosure websites that are available. So,
okay, thank you.
This is Mike Kavanaugh. I will bring up two things. Is the board will be responsible for setting the rate every year. You'll have to adopt a resolution? You'll have to adopt something making sure debt service is paid, and you'll also have to adopt the continuing disclosure. So all those documents will be brought to you. As said, most of that will be prepared by third-party consultants, but the board does have to act on those two items every year. Okay.
One of my things I was talking about too was contained in the fiscal agent agreement, where it talked about all the different funds that have to be managed. The project funds, and I think there were 7 of them altogether. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't get the sense of whether or not that took a lot of interaction with the library, or whether those things would be done by our vendors.
So that will all be done by US Bank.
Okay.
as fiscal agent. So they'll be holding all of those funds. And then in terms of the project fund, that's for the project, for the facilities that are being financed with the proceeds of the bonds. So the library district, I guess the CFD, AKA the library, as the library district as the legislative body of the CFD will requisition the fiscal agent when they need to draw money from that project fund to pay for the upgrades to the facilities.
Yeah, I saw that requisition form that's used for that. So everything has to be asked for formally, and there's a really good record about how money is flowing back and forth.
Correct.
Okay, great, thank you.
I'll say, Terry, I think the process will be really similar to when we do the GAN appropriations each year. It'll be the same type of thing that will bring that to the board. I don't know if it'll be in June like we do with the special tax assessment, but the board has to vote on that rate that we then impose for the next fiscal year. But all of that's provided to us by NBS as well, so. Back to you. Kim, did you?
I saw you, yeah.
I have several questions. So the first one maybe is just because I'm ignorant. So on page 8, at the very first sentence of the resolution, it's just a word I hadn't seen before. Kappa library. All is one word. CAPA library, but is that a formal term that I've just never heard of?
Sorry, page 8 of the
attachment. It's the first page of the resolution, I think. Well, yeah.
I took that.
So it says resolution at the top, and then it has some words in capital letters.
Oh, that is a typo.
Funny, I saw that too, Kim.
That is really strange, because I'm surprised my spell check didn't catch that, but yes, that's a typo. It should be Altadena Library District.
8 of 167.
Yeah,
And
so I guess any kind of typos like
I just
that.
hadn't seen that word.
Yeah.
You're finding it or no?
I see it now.
Sorry?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, now I can. Sorry, you might have cut out for a second. Sorry.
Oh, no. Yes, it's a typo. So
okay.
I will fix that. I'm surprised that my spell check didn't catch that.
It is also somewhere else.
Sorry, I didn't mean to
It's in
talk over.
places. I don't remember where the other one is.
Okay.
All right. On page 13, it talks about the proceeds, and I think this is the estimates that you were talking about.
Estimates, yes.
So the only part I didn't understand, it talked about the principal amount of 24 million. It talked about the finance charges, and then it talked about the proceeds. And I guess my assumption was that the proceeds is how much the amount we get minus the finance, and then we walk away with the difference. But this proceeds was bigger than 24 million.
Yeah, Mike Kavanaugh, do you want to talk about bond premiums and how we arrive at those numbers? And you're on mute.
Okay. Yeah, this is Mike Kavanaugh. I'm with Hilltop Securities, and I'll be the underwriter. In the bond world, we have what we call par bonds, which is a 4% coupon sold at a 4% yield. We have original issue discount bonds, which should be a 4 coupon with a 4.5% yield. And there's premium bonds, which would be a 4.5 yield with a 4 coupon, or where the coupon is higher than the yield. In the current market, that's the prevalent marketing tool to get you the best terms and conditions. So we see bond deals now, 95% of bond deals right now come with premium. So you'll be issuing premium bonds, generally 4% coupons, yielding, 2%, 3%, somewhere in that range on average. So the difference between the 4% coupon is what you're paying. So the buyer's going to pay you a premium to have that, but it'll only yield 3%.
Okay, so it will cover our fees and we'll get some extra money at the beginning as well. Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
interesting. Sounds like a good deal. I had a couple delinquency related questions. So page 78 and I think 92, what I wondered is I think it's a place where it is saying we pick a dollar amount for a single person being delinquent. And I just wondered who was picking that amount.
Yeah. So
Kim, it looks like you've cut out. I don't know if there's a lost connection or.
Look for closure.
Kim, you cut out for a sec. Can you restate your
Sorry.
question?
So page 78 of the full 167, in about the middle of the page, there's a paragraph that says foreclosure proceeds.
Mhm.
And then it has a blank space for if the district determines any single parcel is delinquent in a certain amount. And I just wondered who gets to pick that amount? Is there a process?
Yeah, so I mean, I can start and then Doug and Mike can probably jump in, but when you have bonds issued under the Mello-Roos Act, it provides that the district can foreclose on properties that are delinquent. And that's used, Doug and Mike can speak more to this, but prospective bond holders and bond owners really, I believe this is a tool used to get a better rate on the bonds as well, because they want to know that if people don't pay their special taxes, that there is a mechanism and a covenant that the district makes to pursue foreclosure actions when properties meet certain thresholds in delinquencies. So this is one of those where when we do the initial draft, we usually kind of leave it blank, especially if it's with a client that hasn't done a CFD or a bond issue before, because we don't, we'll work with the municipal advisor and the underwriter to figure out what, as in connection with obviously the library district and the CFD committee, to figure out what a good number is. So Doug and Mike can maybe speak more to what a good number is. A lot of it kind of depends on the CFD specifically.
Yeah, I'll defer to Mike on what he thinks would be appropriate, but also I wondered, Nora, did we talk about that at all in their CFD policy that was adopted when the formation came about? Is there any direction in there?
Let me take a closer look at that. I don't recall there being a robust discussion on that, but let me take a closer look.
Okay, then it's more of a marketing thing, and Mike, I'll pass that to you.
Yeah, thanks, Doug. Again, what we normally see, and obviously we can work with the district on it. Normally you see that number as high as $5,000. So, and which really corresponds to what bond increments we sell in. So we don't want to say if one guy is delinquent $1, we don't want you to have to go through this procedure. It's something that, obviously takes time and effort and money. We don't want you, but it to some degree, when it gets to some level of urgency, and that number I've seen as low as, I think I've seen as low as 1,000 and up to 5,000, somewhere in between. 2,500 sticks in my head as well. But we can work with you on that. I mean, if the district has certain levels you want to pursue, lower, higher, we wouldn't suggest anything higher than 5,000 though.
Yeah, and this is Nora. I also wanted to let you know that this language in the POS is taken from the fiscal agent agreement. So it's one of the covenants in the fiscal agent agreement. And we work with clients on pursuing doing the delinquency letters and pursuing the foreclosures. And it does sometimes become, you want to comply with your covenant. So I did include language that says at the end, notwithstanding the foregoing, the district may elect to defer foreclosure proceedings on any parcel so long as the amount in the reserve fund is at least equal to the reserve requirement, which we see in deals frequently. So I think for some of the clients that we help with the administration of these delinquencies, I think it's really helpful to have that flexibility in the covenant. So you're not in covenant violation if you decide not to move forward with the delinquency. That's, if the threshold is $5,000, if someone's delinquent $5,005, you don't have to move forward. You can elect to defer.
And I think
yeah.
I was going to say, I think in practice, MBS probably will talk to you about what their typical program is. I think they'll have a standard letter they'll send out, if someone is delinquent a certain amount of days. And then if it escalates, I'm sure they will contact you before they send a second letter. Before the foreclosure word is bandied about, they'll talk with you before they do that. So.
All right. And I that's what I kind of wanted to understand. If I thought you would probably be advising the CFD on what appropriate is. So the only thing that then made me really confused is on page 98, where there's something about special taxes not being within the teeter plan. It has a 10-year history of the countywide delinquency rate. But they're all in the 90%. And then I got really confused. Is it trying to say that the delinquency rate being 98% mean that 98% of the people aren't paying their taxes, or does it mean something else?
Yeah, good point. And this is one of those, I think I'd bracketed it to kind of discuss with the internal, group as we were doing our document review. And this is the initial draft, so we haven't done that work through yet, but that was one of the questions I think I had for Mike and for Doug. Typically when special taxes are levied and then you issue bonds, you have some sort of delinquency. So this is actually not the percent delinquent, it's the percent that paid. So I think that table definitely needs to be updated so that it's more clear. But I think for disclosure purposes, although it's not, the county doesn't have a teeter plan, but I think it is, and this, even if they did, likely the CFD special taxes would not be included in that teeter plan. But I thought it would maybe be helpful for investors, since there is no history, to show the history in the county generally. But, that was one of those where I just wasn't sure about. So I kind of had it initially bracketed, and then I found the information in the county's CAFR. So I added it just kind of with a note to myself to kind of talk about with Doug and with Mike. So that might be one of those pieces of information that maybe is determined not even to be in the POS, but one that I thought might be helpful since there's no delinquency history in the district, the CFD.
Great. And then last thing on the documents themselves. So on page 100 is table number 3 of the direct and overlapping debt summary. And so it's listing the Pasadena Unified current debt. But what I wanted to make sure you guys were aware of, so we have passed a bond for over 500 million. But at this point, I think we have only issued, I'm going to say somewhere between 40 and 60 million. And so that the first time we'll hit the tax rolls this November, December. So, because we just issued them in the last few months. So, but potentially over the, next 10 years, we would be issuing quite a bit more. And I don't know if it's an approved debt, but we haven't issued it yet, if it has to appear here as part of the overlapping.
No, it wouldn't appear there, as it would just appear as what is currently outstanding on the property in the district. And this is as of August 1st, 2021. So likely depending on, when we actually bring this forward, we'll probably maybe check with CalMuni, because it might be a little bit outdated, to see if they can bring this forward. But this would be just what is actually issued and outstanding.
And Nora, I think I had mentioned it to you when I first saw that list. I don't see the district's current partial tax on there. I don't know if that doesn't fall under this review by CalMuni, but you might ask CalMuni about that.
Yeah, that is a good point. I will ask NBS to work. NBS has been working with CalMuni on getting this and preparing the tables. So I can check with NBS on that because that's a good point.
Great, thank you.
Could that be because it's a special assessment and not like a bond?
This list, should capture everything that affects the taxpayers. So I would.
So, I actually think that's a good point. It's not a debt. So I think that's why it wouldn't be on there.
Okay.
This isn't all taxes. This is just, there's the tax and assessment debt and then the general fund debt. So there's the GO obligation bonds and then the tax and assessment district or tax and assessment debt. So that's a good point. That's why the parcel tax isn't on there.
Got it. Thanks.
Ooh, yes.
Good job. Nikki.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
Just a quick follow-up on Kim's question on the delinquency. Maybe I misunderstood, but isn't the debt being paid through the individual property tax bills? So each property, aren't they paying it directly as part of their property tax, or is it a separate bill completely?
So the special tax will be on their on your property tax bill. So
Right.
typically, if you're delinquent in your property taxes, you're probably going to be delinquent in your special tax.
Right. So my question is that, and that kind of leads to my next question. That's what my assumption was correct. But the thing is that if someone's delinquent on their property taxes, then we are a junior lien holder relative to the overall county. Are we not? Or do we take first position above and beyond the county? So if they are delinquent in their property tax bills, and the county wants to move forward on foreclosure, what would the CFD be doing in a junior position, if you will, as far as monetary dollar amount relative to the county trying to foreclose?
If the county forecloses, you will get paid for the special taxes if they're delinquent. Yeah.
So, but if they're, in other words, but if they're delinquent on payment of the parcel for the service, the debt for this bond, they're going to be delinquent for their entire property tax. So the assumption that we're setting ourselves up to be taking a position where we're going to foreclose them, it probably is not going to come to bear, because I would imagine the county would probably be foreclosing them long before we would probably be considering that.
And I guess NBS might be able to speak more to this, and I can speak to the clients that we've helped out with this, but typically you do the delinquency letters, reminder letters. Typically people pay. We've had certain clients allow property owners, because usually with the county, you have to pay all of your delinquent property taxes. You can't just say, I want to pay the CFD taxes.
Right.
So you can do a procedure where you remove the taxes from the roll, and then the CFD can collect the taxes, the delinquent special taxes, so that they're under the foreclosure covenant. So that's something that we've done for helped other clients with. There's also, you could, which I don't know if I would recommend this because of some issues we had, but people have set up installment payment agreements for the special taxes, remove them from the roll, set up an installment payment for the tax years they're delinquent, so that they can avoid the foreclosure proceedings. And typically, if I've only actually, worked on one where it's gone to foreclosure, and typically if there's a mortgage on the property, they aren't going to let it be foreclosed on because of some delinquent special taxes. So, and
right.
Doug and Mike can speak more to that too. They might have additional experience with this, but that has been my experience in the, 7 years I've been working with CFDs.
Knowing what I do about LA County, I'm guessing that any action that your district takes would be before the county takes action. So,
as far as expediency, that probably makes sense. At the beginning of this presentation, well, first let me back up and say thank you for the presentation. This is very informative. A lot of material to go through. This is going to come back for our consideration once more next month or in December with changes. So I kind of wanted to get a flavor for what changes may occur to this document, but for refining the dollar amounts that are in the good faith estimates, and of course what we anticipate the premium bond price point will be. Because there was a discussion earlier also that we're waiting to see what the overall cost of the tier 3 and the hazardous mitigation may be, what those costs are. And is that for purposes of disclosure as to what we're going to pay for? Because I don't think that shouldn't change necessarily the cost of borrowing the money, correct?
No, I think it was more for a comfort level on whether we're borrowing the full authorized amount of the 24 million.
Just want to get clarity on that. So what do you think will change in this document from what we see here, beyond just refining the numbers as we get closer to we know exactly what the cost of issuance will be?
So I guess I can speak to kind of the open issues that we have outstanding on, like, the fiscal agent agreement, which is also, as you saw in the preliminary official statement, so that foreclosure covenant, putting that information in. We still haven't had, just because of the timing with the moving the schedule back a little bit, we haven't had like a working group call to really go through the documents and fine tune them. So I think there's still, like I said, these are initial drafts. So there's still a lot of, I went through and found like 6 typos when I was just flipping through them. So just a lot of getting everyone's eyes on it and making sure that everything is fine-tuned and cleaned up. And then I think specifically working with Nikki on some of the information regarding, like, it's really hard because Altadena is unincorporated. Typically, when the deals I've worked on, it's a city or it's something that has a lot of this information, just general information that's like readily available. So even working with Nikki on some information on population, there's just this kind of, one place has some population, another place has another population. It's like, did the population 7,000 in 1 year? Likely not, but just drilling down on those kind of issues, along with the property values has, as I mentioned, these discussions of these special risk factors. So trying to get as much information we can about, wildfires, any kind of like flood information on properties within the district. And to the extent any of the members of the CFD committee have any information on this, that would be helpful. Because typically, a lot of this is a fully built out community, which is great, but and has, it will get a great rating. But a lot of the information that we would typically have just from it being in a city and also from having, undeveloped property, all the developers would have all this information on flood, fire, et cetera. It's just doing more due diligence to make sure that we have the right information for the property within the district.
So if you were to get information regarding fire, I'm not sure what you'd exactly be looking for, but how would that if that's for disclosure, but wouldn't necessarily change the financial piece of it, right?
Mike can maybe speak more to that. California, there's wildfires, right? You see that
exactly
all the time. Altadena's right near, like, based on, I've never been there, but based on me looking on Google, it's right near wooded area I'm not sure that disclosure of any of these conditions would change the price of the bonds at all, but just making sure that the disclosure document has all of these properly documented and it's not misstating any information.
Thank you. Gary, I have nothing further. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. And then I had a follow-up or two regarding the last subject, Nora. I saw too, there's earthquake stuff that has to be put in there and so on. You might shop around a little bit. Caltech has a great seismic department, and there's folks that you can go to individual agencies if you're looking to fill in the blanks. But I agree that if you have all that stuff covered, there won't be anybody be able to complain, about things later on. So I think those are good things to put in there. And then I had a follow-up question regarding an item on page 151 of the packet, where it was talking about ways to establish pricing, and there's this 10% test that's mentioned. This might be a question for Hilltop rather than this group here, but I just wondered if we're going to go through something similar where it sounded like a small portion of the bonds would be released to the market, see kind of what they sell for, and then try to set the regular price based on something like that. Do I have that right?
Yeah, and Mike hopefully can speak a little bit more to that.
Yeah, I think you're in the purchase contract probably. I don't have the document you're looking at, but my guess is it's referring to if we were to sell, when we do a public offering, an order period, if we don't sell at least 10% of every maturity, then we're obligated to follow up, either commit to that price where we can't change that price for a matter of days, or report to you what price we do sell it at. It's just a standard industry, relatively new last couple of years practice that we have to provide to you as underwriter to make sure we're not taking bonds down and then waiting a time period and selling them to make a big profit. That's what it's trying to avoid.
Okay, thank you.
And I believe it was 2017 maybe. So I guess that now that's like 4 years ago. It seems very recent.
Yeah, it does.
Any other questions? Okay. So Nikki, this meeting is something that we'll use to kind of set the bar a little bit and keep track of the progress between now and this time that the whole board sees it, so that we can stay on top of recommendations and so on. And did I get a sense from you then that we would actually have a future meeting for the CFD committee that we would recommend this whole package to the board and make it a little easier? Okay. And
I don't anticipate that needing to be 2 meetings, to be honest. So we'll look at if it makes sense to do that at November or December. As we know, the December board meeting comes a week early, so it would give us less time between the December meeting of the CFD and the regular meeting. So, we'll find a time that works best for everybody. Just so the group can see like the more finalized draft of these documents before it goes to the full board.
Well, I think that there's been a big dent put in all this stuff with everybody's hard work, and I really appreciate it from my end. It is a daunting package, but at least we've read it. The rest of the board still has to do that. We'll see that. And I guess that might be it then, right? Any other issues? And there's nothing on the agenda for today, unless we would like to put something on a future agenda. Anybody have any thoughts for that?
This is Nora. I just wanted to say, if anyone has obviously any small or big comments, feel free to send them along to me. And also just for preparing for the board meeting, if there is anything you think might be helpful to either like add to the staff report or kind of put in a like shorter summary, I guess. I did a pretty brief staff report just because I knew this was an information item and didn't spend, a ton of time drilling down into the documents in a staff report. But if you think it would be helpful to get more of a kind of a bulleted summary or something in the staff report, any suggestions so that it can be made easier for the full board when they review it? Let me know.
I think it'd be an excellent idea to have that, just kind of extracting from the good faith estimate with the final numbers, and the repayment term for the constituents. I think it'd be very helpful to have that, just a one-page, table summary.
Okay, I can work with Nikki and Doug and Mike on getting that into the board report versus just, I think right now I just pretty much describe the legal documents and pretty in like paragraph form. So maybe I can work on doing more like bullet points seem to be sometimes easier to read.
Yeah, and the other, especially the parts of the documents that are specific information about Altadena, if you have information or can share, or you catch something that doesn't ring true, you know, the whole point of this disclosure is making sure we're saying everything we possibly can for people to make an informed decision, to not just like avoid complaints, but avoid lawsuits too. I watched a webinar on it, so.
All right, well, with that, I'd like to thank everybody for being here today. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, Ken.
So I was just looking at the calendar for December, and because I'm assuming the last 2 weeks will be mostly holiday, but you think there's still enough time, and would our meeting be on its regular time, or would it have to move because the month is shorter, do you think, or?
I really think December 8th, which would be the CFD meeting in December, is a good time, because it gives us that maximum amount of time to get this thing finalized, as well as the numbers. I mean, this whole delay is based on we need to get the seismic numbers, and from what we've been told, we may not get those till mid-November. So it's probably going to be my suggestion to cancel the November meeting. I'll work with Terry on that unless there's something else that pops up that makes sense for us to meet. We'll plan on the December 8th meeting, which would be the finalized version of the documents for the committee to review, ultimately recommend to the full board, and we'll take it to the full board on December 20th.
All right. And then, so that means that during November, kind of the final decision about the total amount to go for going all at once versus split into two, all of that stuff based on the cost estimates, all of that's going to happen? Not with us, but with
Right.
other.
Yeah. With this bond issuance team, as well as the facilities committee, which is the group that's working with Racklin Partners, our capital project management firm, that's overseeing the studies that are being done right now.
If you can just keep us kind of informed about those meeting dates, so that if we wanted to listen in, that would be great.
Okay.
And one other thing, sorry, this is Nora, just to jump in, that I thought of as I was going through this. So the bonds will probably now have a new name, because if we're going to the board December 20th, they won't actually be issued till 2022. So that they will now be the 2022 special tax bonds. So that will change throughout the documents.
Okay, well, once again, thank you everybody for the insightful questions and all the good information. I can tell you're working hard, every department on this, so we appreciate it. And with that, can I get a motion to adjourn?
I'll move.
I'll second.
Okay, and with that, we are adjourned. No objections. And thank you, everybody. That'll be at 3:57 p.m. Thanks, everybody, for showing up today. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
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 Bye.